Hey YouTube, I have another video for you guys today related to Rocket League players and being of the minimum age, 15 years old. The last one was about the fact that the 15-year-old age minimum got extended just from past RLCS to also community tournaments. And we talked about whether or not that is going to affect the scene. And honestly, my opinions on whether or not it was a good or bad thing have shifted as people have talked about it. But we're not going to talk about that again today because we've already talked about that before. But there's actually some controversy going on right now with players who are playing in the RLCS who aren't 15 and other players who have tried to do that in the past, and how rulings on those things have shifted and differed. And a lot of the community is kind of upset and almost confused what's going on. I'm going to break it down for you guys real quick and explain why it really isn't that crazy. So the first people that we need to talk about is Team Liquid. We talked about Team Liquid last time in the previous video, the fact that Team Liquid had rumored to pick up Oski and Atao before the RLCS had even been possible for them to be played because they were 14 years old. And recently they announced that they have officially signed them. They dropped Ronicky and Flakes and picked up Atao and Oski. But the more interesting part is that they've been allowed to play in the next regional of RLCS. And the reason why that's unique is because when the qualifiers happen a week before the actual RLCS main event, Atao and Oski will both be 14. But by the time the main event is played, if they qualify for it, they'll be 15. Now, it turns out what Atao, Oski, and the rest of Team Liquid did is they contacted Psyonix and asked if it was possible for them to play in the qualifier before they were 15 years old, because they'll be 15 by the time they play in the main event. And it sounds like Psyonix said that that was okay. Now, a lot of people are wondering whether or not they said that because it was Team Liquid, a big org, or are they just saying that because these players went out of their way to ask for permission. Either way, it doesn't seem like that crazy of a ruling, right? They will be 15 by the time the big main portion of it happens, so maybe it's really not that big a deal. But some people disagree, and one of the main ways they disagree is by bringing up examples of some other things that have happened. So I'm going to go over them real quick. The first is LJ. They have talked about LJ and the fact that when he played, I think in the exact same situation, he played a qualifier in which he was 14, but he was going to be soon to be 15, either before the event or very close to the event. But he wasn't allowed. Jamal Jabari got dropped from the event, which is the team he played on. And everybody's kind of pointing to LJ like, what's the deal with LJ? Why did it happen that way? And I think the clear part of what's different about Team Liquid versus these other examples we're going to show is these other people were lying. These other people were lying and trying to trick the rules in order to get it to work. Whereas Team Liquid has been super upfront from the very beginning. They're trying to get to play. They could have been told no, but they weren't. So LJ, if you guys don't know about LJ's situation, he is a top North American player. He played with Jamal Jabari on a team. I think he, signed up for it not thinking they were necessarily going to qualify, but they were a good team and they did qualify. Eventually, they found out that he wasn't 15 years old. And you'll see as a competitive ruling that Psyonix posted here in the Reddit, they specifically point out that he lied about his age on the signups, which is against the rules. And they quote the relevant rules that he broke. So would it have been possible if LJ was on the exact same kind of situation where he'd be of age by the time of the main event? Could he have played? I don't know, but he didn't even try. He just lied to the system and then tried to get away with it. I mean, there's kind of an obvious difference between that and what's happening with Team Liquid. So I think LJ not being able to play and his team not being able to play should make sense to you. But another one that is probably the more talked about ban recently is Zen. So I don't know if you guys remember Zen or know who Zen is. Zen is an upcoming player in EU. He's a French player who has been banned recently for a year, it sounds like, according to this tweet. It sounds like there's not a really great source for how long he's been banned, but apparently he's been banned for a year. I wasn't sure what he did wrong, but I remember somebody bringing it back up in the Reddit thread here. One of these comments is a good job of explaining it. But basically, it sounds like a team was trying to qualify, and on one of the days of the qualifiers, one of their players couldn't play. So they had Zen, who apparently might have been 13 at the time, so this was a long time ago, sub in for one of their players, play as if he was them, either play on his account and just hopefully have nobody notice that he was playing any different. But as Rise talks about here, a team player in Queso says somebody found out because they noticed, one, he was playing differently or better than he normally did, and the fact that he had all the same settings that Zen normally plays with. So for whatever reason, maybe that was the beginning of it, he gets caught. Zen discovered to be having played on another account, which once again is just breaking the rules. It's not like they asked if Zen, who is a little bit younger, could potentially play in place of somebody on their team. It's not like he was the sub or anything. I mean, they just lied. So of course he's in trouble for it now. It sounds like the only thing you can really be mad about is maybe his ban wasn't clear. At the time, he wasn't of age for RLCS, so it doesn't really make sense to ban him for the years he couldn't play anyways. So ultimately, it comes down to banning him now that he is eligible, and it sounds like he's getting a year ban and won't be able to play until at least he's 16. And this also sounds like unprecedented. I didn't know the exact Atomic situation, but it sounds like Atomic ran into the same thing, was also banned for a year. So all I really want to say is it doesn't really seem to make sense to compare Zen, LJ, and Team Liquid right now. All very different situations. And really, I think Sonic's perspective seems pretty straightforward. So hopefully now that I've covered them all, maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't. You can let me know in the comments if you think someone's being unfair somewhere. But honestly, seems pretty straightforward. Don't break the rules. If you want to try and get an exception, you should maybe talk to Psyonix. And if there's anything to talk about, anything to complain about, it could maybe be that you don't think it's fair that Atao and Oski got the exception. Maybe there are tons and tons of people asking for the same exact exception where they have a birthday in the 1 week before the qualifiers in the main event. Those players maybe won't be as good as Atao and Oski, which maybe doesn't really matter because you kind of have to apply the rules to everyone the same. You never know if somebody is secretly the best player in the game and you never heard of them. I mean, you got to apply them equally. So maybe that's where the problem is. I don't know. I don't know what you guys think. It doesn't seem to be as crazy as everyone's saying, but hopefully you can see the whole picture now, make a decision for yourself.